Welcome back to Spaces and Shadows. You are listening to episode 4 of my 911 Lone Star fanfiction titled Beneath and Between. Headphones are recommended. This audio feature mature LGBTQ+ themes, sexual references, and sound effects that may be unsettling for certain listeners. Discretion is advised. The text may be found in my archive of our own profile. Link is in the description.
Previously on 911 Lone Star by Spaces and Shadows.
Your dad is a Texas Ranger?
The APD isn't sharing information, and they don't want us involved in the case. I made a mistake. I killed his father. Just stick to heartfelt and apologize. TK, I'm so sorry. I thought you weren't gonna come home tonight. I made a promise that I'll come home to you every day. I want you to do the same for me. Promise me. I promise. Carlos, you wanna put yourself out there with no backup? You sure this is the right place? They know we're here. Carlos and Donnie sat silent in the car. Their heart was racing from the uncertainty while they squint their eyes to scan their surroundings. Some noises was heard coming from the building. It was the first sign of life since they arrived.
Carlos, look!
Donnie said, pointing at Jonathan, who was alone, running towards the parked Honda Civic. The headlights lit up and quickly accelerated off and out of the gate at the opposite side of the warehouse. Carlos started his engine and stepped hard on the accelerator to give chase. The engine and the tires screamed and left a cloud of smoke. Donnie yelled in excitement as he got pinned into his seat from the G-force caused by the hard acceleration. Sheer adrenaline rushed through his veins as the car sped past barrels and speed bumps to reach the gates at the other side of the warehouse. Donnie, call 911.
But we are 911!
Just do it and put it on speaker, Carlos said as he tried to navigate around the traffic.
911, what's your emergency?
This is 363H20. Officer Reyes, I'm in pursuit of a possible armed suspect driving a white Honda Civic, traveling west on Howard Lane.
Copy that, Officer Reyes. Units are 5 minutes out. Proceed with caution.
It wasn't difficult for Carlos to catch up. His Chevrolet Camaro was a supercharged car and was built to race. Jonathan could see Carlos's car getting closer in sight from the rear view mirror. He accelerated and bumped into a civilian car, causing it to spin out in hopes of blocking Carlos in his path.
Carlos, look out!
Donnie yelled in fear, holding onto the handle grip above the car's window with both hands. Carlos didn't seem fearful. He declutched and shifted the car to a lower gear to drift around the obstacle with full confidence. Donnie squinted his eyes and let out a scream. The entire stunt was over in a second, but it felt like the car was sliding in slow motion from Donnie's point of view.
I'm alive! I'm alive!
Donnie cried while touching around his body to confirm that his body was still intact and felt relieved that he survived the stunt. Buckle up! It's only gonna get worse from here, Carlos said after he took a glance over at Donnie to see if he's okay.
363H20, Officer Reyes, please disengage. You have orders by your captain to abort your pursuit. I repeat, please disengage.
Donnie hung up the call immediately upon realizing that the call with 911 was still connected. He looked at Carlos with a stoic face and raised his shoulders to affirm that he has no intention to stop Carlos. Carlos nodded at Donnie and slammed on the accelerator to continue his pursuit. After drifting through a junction on a red light, the chase led to a downhill road with several uneven bumps.
Woo! Get him, Carlos!
Donnie yelled in excitement as he felt the air time from the car lifting off the ground. As both cars continued to traverse down the bumpy road, Jonathan lost control of his car when it lifted into the air the next time, landing and spinning out to a stop, perpendicular to the road. However, luck was on Jonathan's side when he noticed a downward ramp right in his direction. Without hesitation, he accelerated quickly and headed down the ramp into an underground parking lot of a shopping mall. Carlos followed and drifted into the ramp. There was a loud crash coming from ahead. He drove cautiously down the spiral ramp and entered a brightly lit parking lot full of cars. They came to a stop when they saw the state of a crashed Honda Civic with the doors of the driver's side left open. Carlos and Donnie drew their pistols when they stepped out of their car, silently and cautiously approached the crashed car. Carlos pointed his gun at the driver's seat as soon as he got close enough. But Jonathan wasn't in the seat. "Call it in. Let dispatch know we're in the parking lot under the mall," Carlos said as he tucked his pistol between his belt and jeans. As soon as he finished his sentence, a missed bullet flew by Carlos's face. Donnie and Carlos ducked and took cover by the side of the crashed car.
"Carlos Reyes, you came back looking for death."
An unfamiliar voice reverbed through the parking lot, but no one was in sight. "Jonathan!" Carlos yelled, gripping onto his pistol tightly. "Put down your weapon! Let's talk!" Carlos said as he signaled Donnie to flank from the other side of the parking lot.
"You're not really the type to talk."
Another bullet ricocheted when Carlos raised his head to take a peek.
"You made that really clear when you shot my father."
"I didn't really have much of a choice, Jonathan," Carlos yelled back, staying low as he advanced forward to a pillar.
"Oh, there's always a choice. Now your fiancé is gonna suffer the consequences when I deliver your body to him,"
Jonathan said, firing a shot towards Donnie. He was caught trying to sneak closer behind the parked cars.
"I gotta give it to you, Carlos. You're quite an impressive guy,"
Jonathan said, pointing his gun left and right, ready to pull the trigger at either Carlos or Donnie when he spots any movement. "You don't know me," Carlos said, firing a missed shot at Jonathan. Jonathan ducked and disappeared from his line of sight.
"Oh, but I do know a lot about you, Carlos Reyes. You have quite a presence online."
Carlos could hear Jonathan emptied his clip. Jonathan took cover behind a car to reload. Carlos took the opportunity to advance forward, making sure that he gets close enough to Jonathan to make a clean shot. Carlos stood in the open with his hands tightly gripped to his pistol, anticipating Jonathan to emerge from his cover.
"What a shame. I would have liked you if we were friends,"
Jonathan said, slowly emerging from his cover with his pistol pointed towards Carlos. This moment was tensed. Donnie watched from a distance as they both had their loaded pistols pointing at each other. It was only a matter of time before someone fires a round. Jonathan, put down the gun. You still have a life ahead of you, but you're about to make a big mistake, Carlos said. His heart was pumping at a fast rate. His palms were sweaty, gripping the pistol.
You killed my father! You broke my family! I'm not going to forgive you for that! It's all your fault, Carlos!
Jonathan cried. He still had his finger on the trigger and ready to fire. You broke your family when you decided to be a criminal, Carlos said. His eyes were teary from the adrenaline and the fear of death. While Jonathan was engrossed in a conversation with Carlos, Donnie took the opportunity to flank and get up close behind Jonathan, taking cover behind a car. Donnie was waiting for the right opportunity to pin Jonathan down. You too had a choice, Jonathan. You made a mistake. But it's not too late. Let's both walk out of this parking lot in one piece, Carlos said calmly, slowly lowering his weapon to gain Jonathan's trust. Your mother's waiting for you, Jonathan. Don't make another wrong decision today. Despite the hostile environment that Carlos was in, he still had a big heart and believed that people could change. He was determined to defuse the situation and tried to get Jonathan to surrender without causing any hurt to him. Jonathan could feel the sincere words of Carlos and started sobbing. He followed suit and slowly lowered his gun with one hand and the other wiping off his tears. He took a moment to collect himself, but his anger got the best of him.
No, it's already too late. And you're gonna pay for it,
Jonathan said, raising his pistol to take aim at Carlos once again. Right before he pulled the trigger, Donnie launched out from his cover and tried to pin him down. A misfire shot the ceiling lights right before Jonathan dropped the gun. During the wrestle, the light and its frame fell onto Donnie's head, knocking him unconscious, giving Jonathan the opportunity to break free and take cover.
Donnie!
Carlos yelled. He emptied his magazine, firing several missed shots at Jonathan, hitting several pipes that flooded the area with steam. Carlos quickly took cover behind a pillar and reached for his pocket for a loaded magazine. Carlos cautiously peeked from the right side of the pillar, panning his head left and right to try and locate Jonathan. The low visibility caused by the steam rendered him visually impaired, unaware that Jonathan was charging towards him from outside of his line of sight.
You should have been dead when I shot you, but I'm gonna make sure that you stay dead this time,
Jonathan said. His voice could be heard, but he was nowhere to be found within the steam.
And then I'll aim for your fiancé next!
Jonathan yelled as he emerged from the steam and pushed Carlos's pistol-wielding hand away from him, causing him to discharge a missed round. Jonathan choked Carlos on his neck with one hand and the other gripping onto Carlos's wrist, trying to force him to drop the pistol. Carlos was not able to break free. Jonathan's grip on his neck got tighter while he was forced to take several steps backwards in an attempt to be pinned against a wall. Amidst the struggle, they both tripped and Carlos fell to the ground. dropping his pistol as he landed hard on his head. Jonathan let out an evil laugh and used his knee to pin his weight on Carlos's chest while using both hands to strangle his neck. Carlos didn't have the strength to fight back. He was crippled by the pressure on his chest, along with the excruciating pain at the back of his head caused by the fall. He was losing his breath and blacking out. Carlos, come back to me, baby. And I'm not going anywhere. But you gotta wake up soon. Because I can't stand seeing you like this. I want you to be okay, just so that I can be okay too. I need you, Carlos. The fear of death had taken over, and tears started to roll out of Carlos's eyes as he stared into Jonathan's evil grin above him. As his eyes lost focus into the steam that flooded the area, flashbacks of his precious moment with TK played in his head. How is it? I'm just so blessed that I'm gonna marry a great cook. Fine. You're such a control freak. Oh, you love it. The times they laughed and cried. You're a raging bull, Carlos. And you won't let anything get in your way of coming home to me. Not raging. The times they fought, only to return back into each other's arms. I just love you too much, Carlos. Is it wrong for me to love you too much? I guess I just love you too much, too. Because as long as we get to spend the rest of our lives together, it's all that matters. As long as I get to spend every moment with you. I love you, babe. Carlos saw every moment he shared a kiss with TK from the start of their relationship to the last one he received before dropping TK off for work earlier on. Don't you ever doubt how much I love you. I just want you to know that you'll always be good enough for me. I love you, baby. I love you, babe. I love you, TK. I love you more, Carlos. Carlos wasn't ready to give up. He didn't want his journey with TK to end just yet. He escaped death from Jonathan once, and he was determined to do it again. You're making it harder to leave. Then stay a little longer. As the lights on the ceiling started to fade out, his memories brought him to recollect the best Valentine's Day he had with TK earlier this year, receiving a pair of beautiful customized engraved pens. What was it that was engraved on the pen that you gave me? Come home safe. That's what it says. I printed that because I'm selfish, okay? Because if you're dead, I can't see myself living the rest of my life without you. This helped him remember that he had the pen in his pocket of his jeans. You're the only thing that reminds me to be safe, because I have something to come home to. Carlos' fingers crawled along the ground as he reached for his pocket to pull out the pen. With the last of his strength, he clicked the pen and stabbed Jonathan on his neck. Jonathan let go of Carlos and yelled in pain while pulling the pen out of his neck. Carlos rolled over to his knees and tried to catch his breath. Carlos was disoriented and unaware that Jonathan was reaching for the gun that Carlos dropped during the struggle. Jonathan picked up the gun and stood steady on his feet to take aim at Carlos with one hand and the other covering the stab wound on his neck.
It's over, Carlos. I'll say goodbyes to your fiancé,
Jonathan said with a bloodied face. As Jonathan was about to pull the trigger, Donnie emerged behind him and struck his head with a metal pipe using both hands.
Oh, wicked!
Donnie exclaimed in excitement as he dropped the metal pipe to the ground. Jonathan had been disabled and lay motionless on the ground, unconscious. Thanks, Donnie. Carlos was still on his knees, trying to catch his breath. The steam was clearing, and they both looked ahead at the entrance of the parking lot as soon as they heard police sirens approaching. They both let out a laughter, marking the end of their mission.
I just saved the legendary Officer Reyes. Does that make us partners now?
Donnie said with enthusiasm as he walked towards Carlos to help him up. Don't push it, Carlos said, raising an index finger. He turned his head to see Jonathan and was relieved that Jonathan's chest could be seen rising and falling, a sign that he was still breathing and alive. His eyes then focused on the bloodied pen he used to stab Jonathan. He picked it up and wiped the blood off on his jeans to reveal the engraved words of the pen. I love you, come home safe. I made a promise that I'll come home to you every day. I want you to do the same for me. Promise me. I promise. Come home safe, Carlos. Okay. I love you. I love you more. I'm coming home, TK. Carlos smiled as he whispered to himself. As soon as he slid the pen into his pocket, he lost his balance, and Donnie quickly held onto his arm and shoulder to help him stand upright.
Dude, you're bleeding. Oh, it's bad.
Donnie exclaimed as he noticed that Carlos's grey shirt was soaked in blood. Carlos was still feeling weak from the wrestle, and the adrenaline wore off as soon as he looked down to see his blood-soaked shirt. His knees gave way and his body slipped from Donnie's grasp.
Carlos.
As Carlos laid on the floor, slowly losing consciousness,
Hang in there, Carlos.
he could hear Donnie calling out his name while putting pressure on his stomach to stop the bleeding. Carlos looked ahead, and from a distance, he could see a blurry vision of his dad running towards him.
Damn it, boy, I told you to stay home.
Gabriel said as he kneeled to pick Carlos up in his arms and carried his limp body into the truck. Street lights shined on Carlos's face one after another as he laid in the back seat of his dad's Ranger truck, speeding to the hospital. Despite the immense pain Carlos was feeling from the injuries he sustained, he smiled to himself as he knew he had won the battle and the people he cared about are safe. Carlos's vision blurred as the sounds of his surroundings muffled, and then he began drifting into sleep. And that's it for episode 4. What a ride that was, no pun intended. And of course, I'll always have to leave you guys with a cliffhanger. Okay, I want to take this opportunity to talk to you guys for a bit. I have some good news and a bad news. Bad news first. To prevent any spoilers, there is no preview for the next episode, but hear me out. there's gonna be some 911 Lone Star characters making an appearance, and something special is happening to Carlos. So I don't want to ruin the surprise and fun that I'm about to put you guys through. And no more hurt Carlos, I promise. I think we can all agree that Carlos had enough of getting hurt this season. This episode was very different from what I've done so far, so I really do hope you guys enjoyed the action, suspense, the multitude of emotions that Carlos had to go through, along with some improved visual effects. I've always wanted Carlos to get more action in the show, and I know that many of the viewers wanted the same, so I hope this was good enough to satisfy. Now on to the good news. I have decided to add additional episodes, yes, episodes with an S, to this series. Many of you had been enjoying this series, and I just didn't want season 1 to end so soon. There's still a very small plot of the story to tell before we end it with a 2-part grand wedding finale. This has contributed to the delay in the release of the upcoming episodes, as there's some re-recordings and complicated audio mixing to do, but all you wonderful people had given me a lot of motivation to continue this journey. So once again, I'm going to give a shout out to some of the wonderful people who showed support and stayed by my journey. There were a lot of you, and I couldn't put everyone in my previous episode, but thank you each and every single one of you out there for listening to my audio fanfic. And big thanks to those of you who always come back to catch my new episodes. Special shout out to 911 Lone Star Edits and Emilia Cristofaro for getting the correct answers for a quiz I've posted on Twitter. I would like to invite everyone to follow and interact with me on Twitter at Spaces and Shadows. I'd love to connect and chat with all of you and talk anything about 911 and 911 Lone Star. Okay, that's all I have to say. I love all of you, and I love Rafa, and this episode was dedicated to him, so send my audio fix to him for me. Do subscribe to be notified when I drop the next episode. Okay, stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you guys on episode 5.